What's up, everyone? I'm your host, DJ, a.k.a. Sexy Bad Choices, a.k.a. NTD has been deactivated, a.k.a. the Sumeru Scholar. Who else is here?
I am Sean M.F. Ross.
What the MS stand for?
Mr. Type O Invincible.
Mr. Type O. Oh, okay. Let me find out you've been spreading your blood around. No?
Actually, no. Sean and Drea had COVID, but I did not catch it.
Oh.
Because apparently Type O people are ever so slightly less susceptible to catching the shit.
Huh. I'm Type O.
Hey, Type O gang.
No, like, that's actually interesting because Shreen and London got COVID before too, and like
You didn't.
I was taking care of them, and I was negative, and it's like, let me find out.
Okay, I'm gonna nip all this shit in the bud right now. Hey everyone, what these guys are talking about is probably true, but consult a medical professional before you start taking the advice of anyone on this show.
You sound like you're not part of the master race.
I don't even know what my
No.
is.
I think Avery's keeping us out of trouble. I appreciate that.
Like what Sean was saying with the anecdote, but when DJ was starting to feed into it, I'm like, oh no.
Right?
As if we have enough people listening to us to feed into our medical bullshit.
Hey, this could be the one. You never know. This could be the one. Let me go ahead and put a COVID tag on this next podcast. All right, last up, who was that was wrangling us in?
Oh yeah, it's me, Avery. I'm watching. Yeah. It was I'm here.
Nailed it. All right. Now that you know who we are, Press It Start Podcast is a weekly show where we talk about the latest gaming news, review the biggest games, and give you our thoughts on the games we are playing. Our goal is to expand the video game media landscape through an underserved point of view. And normally, we would jump into the quick hits, and we'll give you the quick hits, and then we'll follow it with, things we've been playing. But before we do that, we got some housekeeping. We actually got a email from one of our favorite listeners, Casey O'Neill. What's up? He sent a question to Jordan about Yakuza, actually just Yakuza in general. I'm sorry.
Gaijin.
I sound American as shit. Jesus Christ. Okay. His question was, what's up? This one's for Jordan because he played the fuck out of Yakuza. Google says none of the Yakuza games are not turn-based. Was that true when you were playing the series? Also, which one was your most favorite? Or the one you had the most fun? Jordan, who could not be on this show because he is, in fact, keeping Baltimore in check with his numbers and stuff. So we appreciate that. Jordan, we appreciate you. Jordan's response said, prior to Like a Dragon, which is Yakuza 7, which I had not played yet, the Yakuza games are button mashing beat 'em ups. Based off of what I've seen, his research, the game mechanics to Like a Dragon can be compared to the Persona series. And he said this is ironic because he literally just finished Yakuza Kiwami 2. Did I say that right? Kiwami?
Yes,
Kiwami?
it's Kiwami.
Okay.
How many has he played?
Finished.
From what he sounds like, he's played 2. I've played 0, 1, 2, and 3, and I stopped because all Yakuza games are. Once you played one Yakuza game, you've played them all, and that's not a slight against Yakuza. It's just a true fact about
formulaic, right?
Formulaic of the series, yeah. And
right.
From what I can remember, yes, Like a Dragon is the first time it was turn-based, and it was inspired by a how would I say this? An April Fool's joke. I want to say 2 or 3 years before that game came out, where they're like, "Hey guys, April Fool's, our next Yakuza game is going to be a fucking turn-based game," and they're like, Yakuza fans were like, "Nah, man, we don't want this," and they're like, "All right, cool." So they made Judgment, and they're like, "Psych, the next Yakuza game is going to be turn-based."
Yikes. So actually, to answer your question, Sean, Jordan has played 3 out of the 7. And he
the way he be going, I thought he done ran through the series a couple times.
Well, I mean, they're like really, really big games, though, right?
Yes.
I may surpass him.
Oh, okay. We got a little friendly competition going on here. I'll be the cheerleader.
Yeah,
I can do that.
You do that, you tall neck horse. I think they're gonna start coming on PlayStation Plus Premium or Extra, whatever the hell, on the 16th. So by the time they hear this, it'll be See.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're asking, there's a strong chance that they're asking Jordan about this specifically, because he's not necessarily the only person. He's the only person who talks about Yakuza on this podcast, but he's not the only person who has talked about Yakuza on this podcast. So odds are they're asking Jordan specifically. They're asking about Yakuza and on Xbox, which is, from what I can tell, they are still on Game Pass.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All those words that Avery said is true. All right. Well, there you go, Casey. Now you'll be able to make a more informed decision. And you other listeners who are not Casey, if you would like to email us a question and have it answered live on our cast, as we did just now.
Live.
You could email us live, yes. Yes, actually, you're right. Yes, good thing you put the quotations. Yeah, you can email us at pressx2. This is TO, not number 2. It's TO. So pressx2 start podcast at gmail.com. So do that. You can also, just like the podcast, like the show. Give us a good review. Do all that good stuff because we need it. We need to know that you're watching and that you're enjoying the show. Because if you're not enjoying the show, stop watching. Goddamn shit. No, I'm joking. Keep watching if you're not enjoying. All right. With that being said, now I believe we can jump into the quick hits. Normally, I'd be like, Avery, take it away. But Avery, you want me to take this first one?
I mean, I'll read the headline and you can explain whatever. Okay, so this is from IGN. This is from Ryan Leston. Multiversus Season 1 release date confirmed. You go from there.
All right. So, Multiversus, as he said, Season 1 has been confirmed. So, they pretty much caused a little tizzy because they announced that it was going to be delayed like maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, everyone was like, oh my God, it's going to be delayed. When's it going to come out? Is it ever going to come out? We don't know. Like, should we just put down the game altogether and pick up Solitaire? So everyone just didn't know really what to do. Turns out, they just needed a delay for whatever reason. And now we know that Multiversus, the new season will start August 15th. So actually tomorrow. So by the time you're listening to this, if you're playing Multiversus, you're already in Season 1. So congratulations, you did it. The only caveat to this is that not everything is going to be released all at once. So everyone was excited because Rick and Morty is going to come to the game, but they're going to be split off. So it's going to be a Rick character and a Morty character. And we know that, I'm just reading from the IGN article. Other big news here is that Morty of the Rick and Morty will finally make his way into the game as a playable character on August 23rd. So I believe the staggering is happening. So Rick is going to be a playable character, I believe, on the 15th. Yeah. Yes. Other than that, they also wanted to make a quick note that they are. Let me find. Okay, this is a quote from them. For those wondering, we are not affected by the Discovery/Warner Brothers merger, and a lot of people was kind of scared that the whole Warner Brothers stuff was going to affect them and their studio, but from what they say, it's not going to. But everyone, just keep an eye out just in case. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that's going to be happening in the actual season, but because you'll be playing it by the time this comes out, I'll give a more in-depth thing come next podcast. All right. Avery, what else? What happened? Let us know. I'm excited. You're muted, Avery. We can't hear you, Avery. Oh, God.
Yeah. I'm back. Sorry. Okay. The reason I wasn't doing this story and let DJ handle it is because, as I've said on this podcast before, there was no power in this verse to get me to play Multiversus. And direct result, this was a story that I didn't even read before it got put on the podcast, so I had absolutely no context to it. So I let DJ handle it. But something I did have context for, last week, or at least 2 weeks ago, from the time you listen to this podcast, EVO 2022 happened. PlayStation took control of the event, and as a direct result, I decided to pay attention to it to see what changed, how it is as an event. This is the first time I ever watched EVO, and I will say this will probably be the last time I watched EVO. Not because, not that the event was bad or any way, shape, or form, or not enjoyable. I just don't find watching competitive fighting games that interesting, especially for a long period of time. Like, you can get me to watch a match of Street Fighter or a match of Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
But, like, me watching 3 hours straight of competitive Street Fighter, I find not that particularly compelling. But that's just me personal thing. That's not even me criticizing the actual event itself. All reports are that PlayStation taking control at EVO, them and Pokimane, made it a more bigger event, a more streamlined event, and a more easier event for everyone involved.
Yeah, I jumped in for a little bit and watched, and like I will agree that they had a better showing this year than the previous years that I've watched. But I'm also
I'd rather watch them put down the sticks and actually throw hands.
So you rather watch just the fight versus fighting games?
Yeah, I don't like watching people play games. I'd rather play the game myself.
But yeah, I'm also with Avery in that when I normally ingest EVO content, it is usually after the fact, and it's like, you know, a highlight reel of like, oh, these two fought and it got to like a stalemate, and it was like a clutch move that this guy did, and that's how they like. I usually watch like those kind of things versus just watching it as it happened. But this year, I was fortunate enough to be knocked out with a cold, so I was just kind of just sitting there and just, you know, watching the content. So it was good, you know. You got your. I was actually watching it to see what the Multiversus scene was going to be like, and it was very competitive. It was very pro level, and it's like, okay, this is kind of what I expected. But it was just nice to see like what pro level play of that game looked like.
Yeah. So per conversation me and DJ were having about, I'm not sure how I feel about PlayStation being involved as the leaders of EVO and what that essentially means to the fighting game community. Looking over I only watched the main stage, which consisted of 4 games, which were Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, I wouldn't say Tekken and King of Fighters. Those are the 4 main stage games that pretty much came on a Sunday. Everything else was, if you wanted to watch it, you had to be in depth of the fighting game community and know what channels they were being broadcasted from. Because the EVO only broadcasted Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, King of Fighters, Melty Blood, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Skullgirls, and Grand Blue. Everything else was on separate channels. They were at the convention. There were events there, but they weren't getting main stage promotion, which leads to a conversation that me and Dita were having which lies that most fighting games are going to have a PlayStation focus going forward, because it's nearly like a necessity if you want your game to be showcased there. Because the amount of PlayStation 4s I just saw on stage was kind of insane. I haven't seen a PlayStation 4 in like 3 years. And it was just like, oh, everyone's playing on the PS4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So EVO's not the greatest thing for video game news, but it is a great time for video game fighting game news and teases and things like that. And so a couple of things were teased and announced at the event, especially for the 4 main stage games. A lot of smaller games that weren't on the main stage got announcements. A lot of it was, hey, we're putting rollback netcode in there. So if you like playing fighting games online, I guess good for you. But in terms of just like wider video game announcements, not really that interesting. But some of the announcements that did come out was...
That netcode thing was for Dragon Ball Z Fighters, by the way. So that whole community like popped for it.
Yes. Okay, so the first big thing was SNK announced its development of a new Fatal Fury game. And this is specifically, if I can remember my fighting game lore, the Fatal Fury series, which was the Terry Bogard-focused games, spun off eventually to the Garou Mark of the Wolves franchise, which I think got 1 game, and then all those characters got rolled into King of Fighters. Well, in an era where SNK is now fully in a rebirth of making fighting games, modern fighting games, with the Samurai Showdown game that came out a while ago, and now the probably 3rd of the modern King of Fighters games are coming out, they're ready to bring that out to the Fatal Fury franchise, which, as a OG Terry Bogard fan, from the Fatal Fury movie I watched as a kid, I'm like, cool. I'll watch old man Terry Bogard fight people again.
Do you have any experience in Fatal Fury, Sean?
I feel like maybe. I don't remember. Not enough to remember.
Yeah.
I was a Tekken man and Street Fighter man back in the day.
Okay.
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Yeah, like for me, it's so weird because like in my childhood, like I played Fatal Fury. I also played SNK, and it was they always meld together in my brain. So like
I mean,
even
carries in both games.
yeah, exactly. So like even when you were talking about like Fatal Fury and stuff, I was just like when you said Terry Bogard, I was like, that's an SNK character. Like SNK like King of Fighter.
He's their mascot at this point.
Right, yeah. So like for me it's like cuz like even just like looking at Fatal Fury I'm like, "Oh, Maya is in Fatal Fury." But then she also made it to King of Fighters too, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Terry, Joe, Andy, Mai, I think Rock Howard and Geese Howard, and
Yeah.
then Mary, fucking that dude with the bow staff, I forgot his name, all showed up in King of Fighters. King of Fighters also is part of the Art of Fighters franchise as well. So the Art of Fighters characters showed up in King of Fighters.
Holy
it's
shit,
like,
I forgot about that.
essentially, to explain, Capcom has like 10 fighting game franchises. Everyone only knows about Street Fighter at this point, and maybe Darkstalkers. Imagine if you were Capcom and you decide the next Street Fighter game would just have every gaming franchise, every fighting game franchise you had in it. So you would have Morgan, the fucking guy from that cyber robots and shit. Anyway, super exciting. I'm excited to see more Goro, Mark of the Wolves. I want to see what new characters they bring in because their character game is the new games is like a hit or miss between this is a really cool design is someone needs to be fired. I don't know whose design what this was.
Someone needs to be fired.
No, some of them are just insane. Like they just
man.
My favorite the thing I love about fighting games isn't the actual playing them.
Yeah.
It's the design and character that goes into those games.
Yeah.
And so I'm always excited to check out when new fighters come out, and I'm always disappointed in a King of Fighters game where I'm like, someone just over-designed this.
Did you play Skullgirls?
Yes. Yes. Well, I didn't play as in I played maybe a couple of hours in that game. I'm like, I like the design.
You tried it out.
The animation, but like I'm not in love with the game.
I got you. Now I played it by myself when it first launched. I think on PS3.
Go is one of those things where like it sucks that the development team like imploded around that game because some of the creators were bad people.
Yeah.
But it's like it's one of the most interesting
development
fighting
stories.
In a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so next bit of EVO announcement news is that Bandai Namco came out with a trailer for what appeared to be like, oh, they're remaking Tekken, apparently. Oh, like a remaster of the original Tekken games, like on the PlayStation Collection and things like that. Cool. And it just flashes from old footage of Kazuya dropping Heihachi off a cliff to modern Kazuya, which implies that there's going to be another Tekken game, which is cool, if less than interesting than a remake of the old Tekken games, if that makes sense.
So I'm on the complete different side where I think because when people were talking, because the rumors were either it's going to be a remake or it's going to be a new Tekken, and for a lot of times when it comes to fighters and when it just comes to fighters in general, going back is unless it's made unless there's like a specific hook to it, going back is usually not really the best idea because you lose all of the features that you've grown accustomed to. So like when Tekken 4, I think, included I'm pulling back. They included a specific feature on it. So that was the main selling point between Tekken 4 and Tekken 3 in terms of the mechanics. And going forward, they had to kind of just add mechanics onto it to make the game more interesting, to make the game feel a bit different from the previous iteration. And like making a remake to a fighting game, for me as a person who like dabbles in that community, it's like all right, that's fine. But like I'm more excited for this as we see the Kazuya in, I'm gonna guess it's gonna be Unreal 5. Yeah. So look at that. That cross promotion there. No, it's not.
No, my thing. So like I said, my favorite thing about these games is the characters and the lore and all that type of ground around it. And like Tekken has fallen into the Soul Calibur issue, in that Soul Calibur also made by Namco Bandai eventually had to reboot itself because it got so far in its timeline and so far deep into it that it was
Did you say a reboot or remake?
Reboot.
You said reboot.
The last Soul Calibur game is a reboot of the franchise.
No. I'm sorry. In terms of what you said you'd be interested in, did you say you'd be interested in a remake or a reboot?
No, I'm on the. Let me finish the thought. Cause it's
Okay.
on a similar vein. So when someone announced that, oh, they're going to remaster Tekken, that's a good stopgap until they decide to what they want to do with the franchise. Because like from me casually looking at all the Tekken games and all the characters they've added and things like that, they've gotten to a point where
it's too much bloat.
They're nearly at Street Fighter levels of there is too much bloat in this game, too many characters, too many unnecessary things, and like you kind of have to pare down. And going back and doing a remake of Tekken in a modern engine with the modern pared down characters, allowed to explore probably new ideas, a subtle reboot, remaster kind of a situation, seemed like a more interesting idea than, okay, what dumb Mishima thing is going to show up and be the villain of this game now?
Right. Yeah, like as from what all I said about like, you know, adding the mechanics and so on and so forth, that's fine. If they reboot Tekken and give you like new characters, like descendants from like the Law family, or Paul Phoenix has a daughter or whatever, and like Jin's as old as Heihachi or whatever, and Heihachi's finally dead in the ground where he belongs, that motherfucker. Like, that would be cool. I'd be totally down for that because, like, as Avery said, like, there is a lot of characters in Tekken, and it's one of the things where I feel like Tekken 7 is in such a good place right now where that can just live as the premier game that you go to EVO with, you play, just like how, you know, Smash Ultimate is like the game that you play, you know? Like, I feel like they can leave that alone and then reboot Tekken and do something different. I don't think that's going to happen because they showed Kazuya with, you know, he obviously just looks just more high res. Yeah. So it's like, I would love a reboot from Tekken, but I don't think that's what we're going to get.
But yeah, more Tekken. And then the sort of like the big highlight showstoppers for EVO 2022 were Street Fighter V and Guilty Gear Strive. I unfortunately couldn't stay up to watch the Guilty Gear matches because they were way too late. Shout out to Leffendo, TSM. Also shout out to I forgot her name, but she won the Guilty Gear tournament, and like she's a former Overwatch player who's like in an interview post the game, she's like, Overwatch sucks, so I moved on to Guilty Gear, and I'm like,
I was like, whoa,
throw them hands. But Street Fighter, I watched all of the Street Fighter top 8 main stage, and shout out to IDOM for putting fucking Daigo in the dirt because that was the most. That was the fight where I'm like, oh man, this like the narrative was that an American hasn't really won EVO Street Fighter ever, and then like the tournament was just full of like long-standing Japanese dudes who all they do is play Street Fighter and fucking drink protein shakes in the middle of their matches, and it was like, oh, it's Daigo. Daigo's 40-something years old. He's top 8 in this game, and he's going to eat this kid's lunch. And then IDOM kicks his ass with Laura. And I'm like, oh, damn. This is going to be insane. And then IDOM gets all the way to the finals, flips the bracket, and then ends up losing to another Japanese opponent. He got number 2, which is a shout-out to him. He went back to New York to live his normal life, even though he is a pro fighting game player and signed to XSET Gaming. But that was, for me, that was cool. The most exciting thing, however, was they came out, they talked more about the commentary mode, revealed all the people who are going to do commentary for it, which is really cool. And the commentary mode, if you don't know, is essentially shoutcasting in the middle of a match, so like a FIFA, Madden, or wrestling thing. But now there's actually fighting games by commentators. But the coolness was when they showed off, we brought a new trailer, and they finally revealed Kimberly, who is a new character to the game. But before I touch on Kimberly, as great as their introduction was, it was immediately upstaged by the return of Juri, where Street Fighter got the memo on what people like about this character and just decided to go all out in terms of that. And I'm just like, you already had my money at Street Fighter 6, but now I will buy your battle pass now.
So DJ, you gonna buy this and then abandon it too in a week?
Man, boy, like I don't know, man. Like I'm definitely looking into this. I think it's very interesting. Like the news of a new Tekken kind of messes things up for me, but like I don't. don't know exactly if that's gonna even amount to anything. So it is kind of just
when
like
that coming out.
Exactly, yeah. So like this is definitely exciting and it's definitely like cool to see, and I'm still like loving what Street Fighter is showing. So it still has my attention. Like the Kimberly thing where she's like using spray paints and it's so crazy colorful. Like I love all of that. Like Juri, I don't know too much about these characters, about the newer characters, so I'm just like, Juri, I kind of remember her from another previous Street Fighter. Like
Juri is a great example of Street Fighter. She was she's DLC for 4 and has evolved to be a now staple of the franchise. Where now, if there's a new Street Fighter game and she's not in it in its core base cast, something has to be going on with Capcom right now. That's how popular Juri is right now.
South Korea had their
cool,
first person on the map in the game.
Yeah, she's the character I play when I play Street Fighter. Her and Cammy.
Okay.
So I'm always excited to see Juri in the game. Kimberly's interesting, and in our chat I described this about enough in that like I think it's slightly problematic that she's a hip hop ninja. That's I think it's a little problematic. That being said, I watched the trailer. I'm like, I'm fine with this. Whatever, let's go.
You know what? Yeah, I am in total agreement with you, Avery. I like when they first described it, I was like, son of a bitch. Like, does it really have to do that? But then there was so much color. I was just like, all right, you got me. You done blinded me with all the spray paint.
She
so I
seems
guess
to
I'm
be
down
from
for
the
this.
lore standpoint, and I had to do some Street Fighter deep dive into this because like it took me watching the trailer twice to realize, oh, she's a ninja, huh? Okay. And I'm like, oh, she's using the same moves as Guy in second. Oh, and like the lore is that she's if you don't know, Guy is one of the characters from Final. Is it Final Fight? Yeah. Final Fight, who got rolled into Street Fighter as one of its playable characters in Street Fighter Alpha, and is the sort of the prototypical ninja of the franchise, and she's his disciple and student. So that's why she does the ease in the drop, and
interesting.
She's a really dope
that's
character.
pretty cool.
Yeah, she's a really dope character. She seems cool. But Juri can just have my lunch money. All right, just whatever. And then the sort of big, they didn't end EVO with Street Fighter. They ended it with Guilty Gear. And beyond that being a fantastic game, shout out to Guilty Gear Strive getting 1 million units, which to the Guilty Gear team's Arc Systems work has said, hey, it's their best-selling game that's not based on an IP they've ever done. So this is like good, big for them and big for Arc System work that they're as a company. But then, before the tournament ended, and I was watching this, they're like, "Oh, we're doing DLC. We're doing a second season of DLC for the game. Let's go, more new characters." And then they put up, "Here comes the Daredevil." And I'm like, I wonder what character they're going to bring back. Maybe it's going to be that man. Maybe they're going to put that man in this game. And I saw the fucking yo-yo, and I freaked the fuck out. Bridget has been a character who's been missing from Guilty Gear for like 5 games now. She showed up, I want to say, in Guilty Gear XX, and she was one of the game's prototypical moe characters, and she's such a meme that she essentially spawned the "it's a trap" fucking bullshit that sort of goes around the video game thing. Because the point of the idea of Bridget was that this was not this is not a girl. This is a prepubescent boy who's just dressed like a girl. And there's all a bunch of lore to express that and everything like that. That's not a hero there. Immediately, Street Fighter Guilty Gear came out and said Bridget is a girl. And not only is she a girl in the game's lore after the fact, her entire arcade mode, story mode, is her coming to terms with being a girl. So it's like, it's in the game. You know how we complain about, we were talking about Philly 76. Philly 76 is gay, it doesn't matter the game. No, if you pay for Bridget's arcade mode, there's an entire arc of her coming out as a girl, which is amazing, and a shout out. And with the inclusion of Testament, who is a non-binary character, Guilty Gear has sort of risen above the anime bullshit it's based off of, and become probably the most woke game in video games right now. And I say, and I'm using woke in the positive sense.
I know, I'm fucking with
you. They're making decisions. That being said, as great as Bridget being included in the franchise went, there has been a lot of controversy on not casting a trans actor to do Bridget with this game, which I think
that's what acting is. Which is
to Sean's point, Sean's absolutely correct. But But in the grander scheme, the trans community does deserve the opportunities to, if not voice characters, to be able to at least voice trans characters.
Right.
I hear you. I just say that's what acting is because I watch P-Valley, so I mean.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Like, there should be no barrier to entry, especially when it comes to animated characters in terms of acting, because of the nature of how that shit works. Especially in the context of a lot of these games where you're not really expressing yourself much as the actor to really drive the game forward. So, like, there's not much you could bring to this performance to make it real, especially when you're mostly just doing grunts and impact sounds. But
that's true. That's a good point.
It's something that needs to be taking a look at going forward in terms of fighting things like that. To wrap up EVO, there was a really weird thing that happened at the convention floor where PlayStation specifically sent out emails about what type of NFTs and or digital collectibles you would be interested in if you could.
I hope everyone said none.
You couldn't say none because it only listed things that it only listed things that are at the event. I would be more annoyed by this if I thought if PlayStation hadn't already backed up from NFTs at the outset when they were doing the Stars program, and B, that this was just a sort of a inquiry.
Yeah.
Doing the due diligence to be, hey, will people actually be interested?
How do y'all
in this?
feel about it? Not let's just shove it down your throats.
Yeah, they're not shoving it down their throat. They're not interesting, but it's still one of those things where I'm like,
the thing is, like, I get that, I understand that, but like, what? You don't need to ask. Like, people aren't just gonna be like, yeah, no, that's cool. Like, you know. Like, the people who are saying no to it are the same people that you're asking, Sony. Like, the people who want NFTs are the companies.
Hey, man, the board asked them to ask, so, you know. Mom said to ask if I could go out swimming. You know, they had to put it out there that they asked.
I mean,
I guess. I just don't. Go ahead.
Because I'm on your same thread of, like, people already complain about this openly and just like, why are you still playing these waters? But like, then I'm thinking, as I'm as a corporation, I'm going to see what the actual read is, because there's a difference between being loud on the internet and being loud in real life.
Yeah, like, is it the vocal minority or is it the actual majority that doesn't want this? I get that. Yeah. I get that.
And feelings change over time as well.
Yeah,
I guess.
So, yeah, that was pretty much a recap of EVO 2022. The last bit of news I have is tangentially revolved, but it's a short story. It's that post-EVO, Arc System Works wants to be less passive with IP collaborations. This is a story from IGN. This is from Mitchell Saltzman and Logan Plant, who are both at EVO, and we've talked with Arc System Works representatives who said pretty much that they want to do more with the success of Dragon Ball FighterZ, and now there's a greater success of Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, and all the other weird shit they're doing. DNF Duel was also at the event, but it wasn't main stage. They want to do more collaborations with other IPs, and with the sort of the Arc Systems Works style.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say, like, what do you want to see from them?
My thing is the fact that what makes Arc System work is they have a very unique and cool style. And I think a lot of franchises are sort of wasted on, like, in terms of actual, like, game, they can make anything work for the most part if there's enough variety in it. But in terms of their style, it's wasted on a lot of franchises. Like, a lot of franchises. Like, they've made certain games I'm not going to call out where I'm just like, wow, their style is wasted on a game like this. Because they can't be nearly as creative or interesting on this. So I don't have many. The only thing I can think of is that, hey, Capcom, if you're not making another Marvel vs. Capcom, Marvel, go to Arc System and tell them to make a Marvel versus game.
I see. I want a My Hero game from them. Like, an actual good My Hero game from them. Like, I know that My Hero's making a game on their own or whatever.
One's Justice.
They're on their third AAA franchise game. They
got
two fighting games, and they're making a battle royale right now.
Yeah. My Hero 1's Justice and 1's Justice 2.
Interesting. Well,
they weren't in that. Jesus, what the hell is the name of that mixed-up anime fighting game?
Jump
Jump
Force.
Jump Force.
Which is one of the worst games. Like,
and that's
so
probably
lucky
why
it had
My
so
Hero.
Much franchise. Yeah.
My Hero.
Mario's in it. Like Bakugo, All Might.
They added him after the fact.
Deku and Todoroki are all in that game.
They added him after the fact then, because I remember at first they did not announce them because they wanted 1's Justice to come out.
That is.
I look at Jump Force trailers and I'm like, oh man, the trailers are so fucking hype. Just look at the Seto Kaiba one and be like, oh man, this is the hypest trailer of all time. Till you look at the characters, I'm like, whose decision was it to make it 3D Unreal rendered characters, but try and keep it anime
cell shaded?
Yeah, it looks so bad. Everyone looks looks like they're wearing masks, living masks. It's so bad.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, I'm down for a My Hero game.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, before we jump into talking about Microsoft and Sony, that high school bullshit. Hey there. How are you? If you're watching us or listening to us and you're enjoying the show so far, well, if you're watching us, do the thing where you hit that like button, hit a subscribe button, and then you hit that notification bell so you can be up on our new videos. If you're listening to us, please just pause the podcast, go to your podcast service, and leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it, and it will do us great things by you just doing this little thing for us. So please just do those things. Once you do that, come back to the video, come back to the podcast, and finish listening to what we're about to talk about. So, Avery, what are we about to talk about? Oh, you're muted again.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't want to say anything while you were doing your subscriber request, so I muted myself. This is a continuation of the ongoing monopoly and antitrust stuff that's going on with the Activision Blizzard Microsoft merger, in that the ongoing U.S. version of this event is still sealed, so we have no idea how those are going. But apparently in Brazil, it's free. Like, court documents are like freely open for anyone to read and investigate and draw news from. So we're learning a lot about how these two corporations, Microsoft and Sony, feel about the merger. What the big claim that has come out of it, and this is a story from The Verge from Tom Warren. Microsoft claims Sony pays for blocking rights to keep games off Xbox Game Pass. Now, this is an interesting story in that there's absolutely no elaboration on what they're meaning, so I'm going to take this to be what it means at face value, which is exclusivity rights pretty much prevent games that have exclusivity rights with Sony from being on Game Pass.
Right.
So I have no idea why Microsoft is complaining about this. The only thing I would see is if Sony is paying games to not show up on the service. Now, if that is true, be plain and clear about that. And then B, that is a bad business move on Sony's part.
Yeah, it's... I think part B of what you're saying is what they're alluding to, because, you know, exclusivity deals are exclusivity deals. Like, we know them, and not PlayStation, Xbox does the same thing when they do their showcases. They say, oh, Xbox console launch exclusive.
Exclusive,
like, yeah. So I think it is Sony's actually paying publishers or paying developers like a set fee for, hey, you can't put this game on Game Pass for X number of months or whatever.
But I mean, like, Sony be mad at the developers for taking the money.
Well, I mean,
Microsoft make a better counter offer.
Well, that's to Sean's point. That is that to Sean. Like, I agree that if Sony's doing that, that's an L take situation. We'll get to the second part of this news. But like, to Sean's point, Sony's coming to you with a large amount of money to not put your game on Game Pass, and Microsoft isn't like matching that or whatever, countering that.
Yeah.
Then like,
it's a business.
Take the Sony money. Yeah, take the Sony money, because like essentially that money is going to be better for you in the long run than if. That's not either here or there in the semantics. I'm taking this at the A and not the B, because if this was the B, you put some damning evidence there, because you just opened up for weird speculation with no proof. well, the situation that you can easily weasel your way out of in terms of like lawyer semantic speech about like blocking also equals exclusivity rights. This is also something we do, but we're bringing it up on the Sony thing to make it seem anti-competitive. It could be either or, but this is.
I'll be interested to see if PlayStation actually responds to this, or they just kind of leave it alone. Because if they respond to it as in like, oh, you mean exclusivity deals? Like you do the same thing, then it's just like, okay, well, you know, Sony's firing back with like, yeah, no, like what you're talking is bullshit. But if they don't say anything, then I'm kind of leaning towards that B thing where it is them paying developers like, you know, don't put their game. But like I also wonder, well, does the same thing happen for Game Pass? Because like,
Cult of the Lamb is a perfect example of a game that like I'm currently playing on PlayStation. It's on Xbox Game Pass right now for free. Yeah. It's not on PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if I and like, I'm just gonna read the tea leaves. If I was Xbox and I was paying for a game exclusivity for my subscription service, I would not also allow that developer to then go put the same game out on another competing subscription service.
Yeah.
Which is then the same thing as saying games are being blocked from competing services. It's all weird, dumb semantics.
This ain't no difference than streaming TV shows and movies. You know, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Netflix, all that shit. Like, what?
Well, I guess it. I don't know. I don't know enough. I don't know enough about that market because, like, I would imagine, like, if Netflix is putting up some of the production fees, then it would make more sense for them to be like, yeah, you can't put this on anyone else. But if like,
I think what Sean's talking about is everything else, because like,
yeah, if the show's already done and it's trying to get to Netflix,
Friends or something.
Friends is on Netflix, and it couldn't be on any other platform until the Peacock stuff happened, and they took that back, and now it can't be on. So like, without more comments, like these are documents that we were never supposed to see, and it's supposed to be for complicated Brazilian law stuff. So we're never going to get the actual answers we want from this, but this is the conversation that's spawned.
We need our paralegals back.
Yeah, and then the second part of the story is from Kotaku, and I'm not going to read the title because it's Kotaku being super snarky, because they clearly have a point of view on how this be. But essentially, Microsoft, after the fact, and this is from John Walker, has said that if Sony really wants to compete with Game Pass, put all your games out day one on your platform, and don't do anything else, and you'll compete, and then you'll be quote unquote competing with us, which is on paper the quote unquote correct business model if you're operating under the same business model, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But they're not though.
Yeah, they're not. And Microsoft, why don't you put your own games out on Game Pass right now? Like,
yeah, this back and forth is just like oh my god! Like, can you guys just focus on making your games come out sooner versus this? But I like, you know, they're both sides are trying to frame themselves to make it look like the other side's situation or deal is a bad thing, you know. So like,
the context is that last week it was Microsoft being asked about what the Activision Blizzard deal, what does it mean, and them saying it means absolutely nothing, won't change the game landscape at all. Nothing we're picking up for $70 billion means anything in the greater landscape. And Sony then saying, Call of Duty is a big deal, here's why it's a big deal. And then it is this week now been like, I don't know why Sony's talking bullshit. Look at all the things they're doing. And you know what? Here's how you can make your thing better. And like, it is a lot of dumb schoolyard bullshit between two major corporations who are operating under two separate things. I'm of the mindset, I've always been under the mindset that at mergers of this size and this frequency, especially after the Bethesda thing into this Activision Blizzard thing, are not good. And there's no way Microsoft can really frame that as like this is good for the video game ecosystem. It's good for Xbox Game Pass and people who subscribe for it, but for not just everyone else, not just consumers, but for the greater, who are not Xbox players, but for the greater way games are built. I don't think all of this is good, and there's no way you can convince me to otherwise. And So I'm of the mindset that this deal falling through would probably be the best thing that could happen to gaming. Would probably be the worst thing to happen to Activision Blizzard because they still be under that previous control. But like,
Yeah.
I guess just let the world burn at this point.
It's so complicated because you're absolutely right. Like, I would imagine Activision under Microsoft would probably be great for Activision I'm saying this if Microsoft like just scorch earth with like all the higher ups that's running Activision, and then they kind of put their own people in and kind of set it up to work kind of the same way that Phil Spencer is working in terms of how, like, you know, vocal he is about the games being good and like pushing that stuff forward. But like, yeah, if it's under Microsoft, then it is a thing of, okay, well, you know, you're saying that you're going to keep Call of Duty multi-plat, but like, how long are you going to do that for? And then once that flip happens, then like, what happens to the rest of the ecosystem?
That flip will happen the minute Xbox outsells PlayStation, and they no longer need the PlayStation ecosystem to depend on it.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Yeah.
So Xbox, how do I say this? Call of Duty on PlayStation depends on PlayStation still being the market leader, which all of Xbox's current activity is to flip that and switch things up, and so that's not a here or there.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I'm interested to see where everything's going forward after this, because, I think the deal is done and dusted. It's just taking time because of regulatory stuff.
Yeah.
But most of this insight into how these companies view themselves is interesting to me, in terms of how they're framing their business decisions going forward. So everyone look forward to Activision games on Xbox and Xbox Gamepass if that's your thing.
Yeah.
And our last story is just a sad day for Avery Williams right now. If you've been following me and you've been following the us talking about our fantasy drafts, there was a strong chance I could have won this year and or gotten at least second place. But in the span of a week, two of my big AAA games got delayed. These are stories from IGN. Well, one story is from Forbes, is from Paul Tassi. The other story is from IGN, which is from Rebecca Valentine. Is that Hogwarts Legacy and Marvel's Midnight Suns have both been delayed into 2023. Hogwarts Legacy, they don't have a date, and Marvel's Midnight Suns has been delayed until I want to say February, which is once again made February the month of death for video games, which I always hate to see, but it's going to happen.
Forspoken comes out in January, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They push it back again?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Every game I predicted at the beginning of the year, I called my shot and being like, "This is a game I think was going to do well." All got delayed.
Yeah. Like, I'm super interested in Hogwarts Legacy. I was watching Midnight Suns. They've actually been doing a pretty good content stream. They've been posting. I think the last thing they posted was like a Wolverine thing. Like, oh, that was cool. So yeah, you know, it sucks that they have to delay the game, but you know, if this is gonna make the overall product better, then sure, go for it.
I'm disappointed. I'm with you. A delayed game will always be better than the game that's not delayed and put out. Look at you, Cyberpunk. But I'm just saying that these two games were the end of my year.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I had planned to play for the end of the year. Like, pretty much now all I have is maybe Saints Row, God of War, which I'm excited for, and that's about it. That sucks.
Well, are you gonna play Callisto Protocol?
That's at the very end of the year, so I don't even really count it as like.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, because for November, like, it is God of War, Pokemon, Goat Simulator 3, you know. But yeah, it sucks though. It sucks. Like, you know, if I just hope that when these games come out, they are released in a state that is like, oh, this is good, and it's not like, you guys need to delay this one more time. Like, come on now.
Splatoon?
Because even Oh yeah, Splatoon. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Shout out to Splatoon. They had their live stream and they had talked about their new content and stuff. And it was pretty cool. Like we were gonna talk about it, but it was a lot of content. Not enough time.
Overwatch 2 still coming out. A Plague Tale, Avery, Mario and Rabbids.
Yeah.
You still got stuff to play, me.
But here's the thing. Those are the two games I was the most excited for.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Those are on top of his list. All right.
Bust another 3. All right.
Oh, and then also shout out to Microsoft for doing their family plan for Gamepass. They're testing it now in 2 countries, Ireland and Colombia, and it looks like it's gonna be like 25 US. It's like 21
Jordan,
Euro
just
over there.
tell us where to send our contributions to put us on your family.
I was thinking about it. You know what I mean? I was thinking about it. All right.
I'm good.
Well, thank you for watching / listening to our podcast. This has been the Press X to Start podcast. We hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as we enjoyed making this podcast. In case you missed all the details, you can find all that and more on our website at pressx2start.com. Again, if you want to ask us any kind of cool question about gaming or life, just email us at pressx2, that is TO, not number 2, start podcast at gmail.com. Again, make sure, if you haven't already, you hit that like button, you subscribe to our content, you hit the notification bell. If you are listening to this, make sure you pause the thing, you go to your podcast service, you leave a review on our podcast channel, page, whatever you want to call it. Just do that thing, what you do right there with the 5 stars. Give us the 5 stars. I don't think I mentioned before that the review should be 5 stars. The review should be 5 stars. If you're giving us anything lower than that, we will see it. We will find you, and we'll laugh at you or something. I don't know. I haven't really thought that part through. Yeah. With that being said, just you be safe, play some games, wash your hands, and have a great day / night / evening / the rest of your life. Peace out.
If you don't give us a 5, we're taking foreskins. Peace out.